Action SA Gauteng Leader Bongani Baloyi joins us now via Zoom for a little bit more on this. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you and good evening to the listeners.
All right,
to the viewers, rather.
As Action SA, what do you know about the financial status of the City of Johannesburg? Is it broke?
Look, we are concerned about the financial position of the City of Johannesburg, and even more greatly concerned by the inability to spend grants, and where the national government has taken back some of the grants which are very substantial to the position, the financial position of City of Johannesburg. So, and it was also quite concerning for a city such as Johannesburg to embark on a process to seek loans for short-term commitments, which such loans should actually be used for infrastructure, long-term financing, or rather recapitalization of infrastructure, and never for short-term obligations.
What do you understand might have gone wrong that the city is in this situation? Is it COVID? Is it mismanagement? What's gone wrong?
Look, I think it's a number of things. And the one thing at this stage that we know certainly about another metro, which is City of Johannesburg, is affected. In the first 2 months of the new financial year, which is the current financial year they're in, they lost about 2.3 billion rands from the consequence of the load shedding. So I suspect the City of Johannesburg, which has a substantial economy, which relies on electricity and also the ability to collect the new tariffs which have been supported and approved by a council, which normally affects, there's some challenges in the first quarter of collection, and they should stabilize in the outer years. And obviously the unemployment situation in our country exacerbated by the global factors and national factors as well. So I suspect it could be a combination of those, but equally some challenges around the appointment of the city manager, challenges around the appointment of the CFO, which have an effect into the spending of grants and access to grants from national government.
Right. So how do you sort this out in an environment where the mayorship and the administration is changing hands almost every other week?
Look, it makes it difficult to sort out. What you need is stability and a predictable environment where the leadership is able to ensure the filling of vacancies in the administration with suitably qualified and competent individuals, more so for city manager and also for the chief financial officer, which really provide the backbone support for the administration and the leadership of the institution. So I really think a stable environment and predictable environment is very important for stabilizing the city's finances, but equally dealing in a very substantive manner some of the challenges that plague the city and unlocking revenue for the city. Because these big metros cannot be allowed to fail because of political differences. Ultimately, the people will pay the brunt for this, and that will affect grass cutting, refuse collection, sanitation, delivery of potable water, and ultimately electricity. So there's a knock-on effect with these consequences at a very executive level in the council.
So as citizens, when we look at what's going on, it sounds as if that it's just political parties playing games to see who's going to be in charge, and that we are last on the list of interests as citizens of the city.
Well, unfortunately, that's the reality we face today as a consequence of parties not being able to gather a majority and therefore needing other parties to collaborate in a form of a coalition to work together. And unfortunately, this is a situation where a nation now is becoming extremely fluid, where there's a vote of no confidence, and that affects the stability of these very key institutions. So I really think we need to find a legal mechanism going forward and learning from these experiences to ensure that these coalitions work within a prescribed legal framework, which will ensure that people don't move in and out of these coalitions, and that there's some sustainability of and management of these coalitions, because ultimately, and I can tell you now that the issue at the center of these vote of no confidence isn't resident-centric or service delivery. It's about access to power, state power in particular.
So what's the legal framework that might work? I understand that your position is the party that gets the most votes should be the one to be able to form the coalitions.
Look, there's a few ideas that need to be tabled, but one thing that we need to learn I think, is moving away potentially from the executive system and moving away into something that is similar to Durban, the Durban Metro, because there is not a winner takes all. In fact, the type of system you have in KZN, majority of the councils ensures equitable and fair representation of all parties in the executive system that they have, over not the executive, but the system that they have in that position in KZN. So I think we need to learn from that and ensure that, one, there's representativity and it's equitable, but equally that we prescribe a mechanism that does not allow for people to sign legally binding contracts and to act contrary in the next possible potential vote without there being legal consequences, because this experience has, at least in our view, informed us that these contracts which are signed aren't actually worth the piece of paper that they are written on, and they are not actually enforceable, because people can sign today and tomorrow walk out and do something contrary against what the piece of paper that they have signed.
So where is Action SA in terms of Mpho Phalatse, for example, and the coalition that was in place when the DA put it together?
Look, in Johannesburg, we are in the multi-party coalition. We are members of that multi-party coalition. This coalition will cease to be a coalition at the point where the mayor is voted out. That point will therefore mean that we've got nothing to coalesce around, and that's the point we've been making very clearly. So that also means that in City of Tshwane, we are currently within a coalition. In Ekurhuleni, there are talks as we speak now. The meeting actually started at 9 o'clock this evening, where the national leaders are meeting to talk about what we do tomorrow and to try and arrive at a position from consensus where we can all agree what we're going to do tomorrow morning when we get to Ekurhuleni. But I can categorically state that in City of Johannesburg and City of Tshwane, we are a member of the multi-party coalition.
And you will vote to keep it in place. Is that your position?
Absolutely, we will vote to keep it in place. But it does not mean that when individuals are found to be doing something wrong, we will sustain the coalition at whatever the cost. At this point, if in the event there's allegations around these mayors, a process will be followed to establish the case, and it allows for them to ventilate some of the issues that will be given expression within these processes. And as an outcome, we'll be able to take a definitive view at this stage. So at this point in time, we are fully behind Mayor Phalatse, we are fully behind Mayor Rando, and both will be subjected to different processes on the basis of their separate matters, and we'll make a decision after that. But at this point in time, we are fully behind, and we will vote for the coalition.
What message are these smaller parties that are flip-flopping sending out to the public? Because their mandate was not to do a coalition with the ANC, for example, and yet they have swapped sides. It doesn't sound as if that's what they voted for. So what does that mean? What message are they sending out to the voters?
Look, I think smaller parties are sending a very clear and deliberate message that they will do anything possible to get to leverage their very small votes to get access to state power and be able to use their advantage either for the benefit of residents or their own benefit through patronage and various other nefarious things. So this says to voters need to be extremely careful about whom they vote for and make a considered choice, because splitting their votes too narrow or too wide is actually empowering seats with only one party seats in council to be kingmakers. And that makes it extremely unhealthy for democracy and sustaining a very stable democratic environment. So we need to think carefully about how we vote. And again, I think the outcomes of these votes is as a consequence of the inability of us as politicians to really animate people and to ensure that we mobilize them in numbers to go and vote for something as opposed to against something. So I really think the current outcome is also a reflection on us as politicians and also on our inability to reflect the times and come up with something concrete for our people that makes sense to them.
Are you worried that what's playing out at a city level is going to replicate when we get to the national elections? Because there is speculation now, and perhaps valid, that there will be a coalition scenario playing out in 2024.
Look, absolutely. I'm extremely worried. but equally hopeful about the future and what 2024 will look like. And you can just imagine, we can't allow for a void at a national government level to exist when parties are still trying to find each other. Because at the national level, they're responsible for maintaining the sovereignty and integrity of our borders of the country and protecting our people. What happens to the army, what happens to the police force. So it'll create an environment which is really uncharted, which all of us must really be very concerned about. And I really think that is the space for political parties to really try and find each other very quickly and ensure that then we'll appreciate that at the end of it all of us are South Africans. So we may believe in different ideologies, but how can those who believe in the same type of thinking and the same values find each other before we find each other in a difficult situation? And just imagine a coalition at the national government of about 7-10 parties. Will it be sustainable? Will we ensure that there's coherence in government policy and how government responds, or in fact, how government sees its core responsibilities and how it intervenes decisively in the economy and in our lives as well. So I'm very concerned about those possible scenarios, but I hope the experience now in Gauteng that we are able to build a mechanism and a framework that can ensure that when we get to national government, we are able to work within a prescribed legal environment that reduces the risk, that forces certain political parties to work together.
Mr. Baloyi, that's where we'll leave it. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, that's Action SA Leader in Gauteng, Bongani Baloyi, speaking to us about the challenges that the City of Johannesburg is facing. They're trying to get out a huge loan with DBSA to deal with some financial issues. And of course, this is against the backdrop of the changing of the guard in terms of who should be mayor, who is mayor, and a vote that might be imminent.